It's Sunday, the 15th of October 2017. Alacer Gold's a company that I own in my portfolio, and I did a video of this a few months ago, and I just wanted to do a bit of an update. They seem to be having a bit of I think there's a kind of a pivot point for them. They formed a bit of a base here. They've gone sideways like a lot of the other gold miners, not doing much. But I think sort of the fundamentals of the company are still strong, and there's a couple of things that I think the markets might start catch on to their transformational developments that are happening. I mean, their production guidance their production's sort of expected to double in the next 18 to 24 months. And there's not a lot of gold producers who have that coming ahead of them. And eventually, I think the market will start to see that. The market cap of this company is only about 700 million US dollars, or 700 million Australian dollars or Canadian dollars. And I think it's probably of a quality similar to, say, Saracen Minerals on the ASX, which is, I think the market cap's at least 50 to 70% higher than Alacer. And Alacer's got better reserves, and it probably will have lower costs as well when it starts producing from their sulfide project. So one of the near-term sort of things coming up is just their production guidance is heavily weighted toward the back half of the year. So you can see there they're expecting 160 to 180,000 ounces, but only 38% of that was produced in the first half of the year. I think this all looks on track. They've started mining a lot of that ore, and that'll be converted into ounces produced at higher levels in the second half. So you'll see that their all-in costs will be below this range, given that they're going to be producing at much higher volumes in the next quarter or two. So that report will be released. The quarterly will be released in the next 3 weeks. So I'm expecting that to be a good number, which always good to see the cash flow, and I think that have been a concern, but for the market maybe. But everything else at the sulfide project seems to be on schedule. The pictures, it's hard to make much of this. Like, where are they expected to be at this point? It all looks pretty impressive from 2016 to now. They seem to be making good progress. It's on schedule, on budget, or even under budget. One of the things they've already booked a bit of a capex saving. So they did the feasibility study was actually done in 2014, and they've also, since then, there's been a massive devaluation in the lira, the Turkish currency, and you can see they've just signed a hedging program as well, and there's potential for more savings from that hedging program. So I'll just show that the chart of the Turkish lira is actually an interesting one in itself against the US dollar. It's gone devalued about 70% probably since when they did the feasibility study, which I think was around 2014, mid 2014. So they put the hedging contracts out at 380, which looks like a pretty decent price. The Turkish government is having a bit of a spat with the US government. I haven't looked into it too much, but that's another thing playing out at the moment, and so that's something to look at too. And the currency seems to be devaluing more, and I think there's a bias for this to go up further. So that it's good to have a rising gold price and a depreciating local currency. That'll always be good. I guess one thing the sovereign risk sort of stuff is something to be aware of. I don't see Turkey as a high risk jurisdiction for gold mining. There's actually been they're the number one gold mining country in Europe, if you define them as European. They've built, I think there's been 10 to 15 mines built there in the last 20 years. So it's a pretty established gold producing country. There's a lot of foreign companies there as well as local companies. So I'm happy to own something based in Turkey. I think a lot of the stuff we see is they have conflict with international countries, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're anti-business. Like some of the countries might be in Africa, for example. The Turkish government doesn't seem to be wanting to take a piece of companies and nationalize them, for example, in the gold mining sector. It's more, they might have issues with local politicians or stuff like that, but it's from a business point of view, they seem to be more a pro industry. So I'm not overly concerned about sovereign risk in Turkey, and if that's something playing on Alacer's share price, who knows? But so that's coming up. The lira that'll be really beneficial, and they'll book those savings as well, I think, and there's potential for more savings as well, I think, on construction. The other thing coming up in the next quarter is their drilling update for their oxide resources. Looks like they might add 100,000 plus ounces there, which will really extend their oxide life, mine life for another year maybe. It might be more, but that's all good stuff because I don't think it's in the share price at the moment. Some of their other stuff you can look through this, but I think their Jedek Tepe project also looks pretty good, but that's a 2 to 3 years away sort of thing from becoming a reality. But all in all, I think it's a very good company to own at this point in the market. They just seem to be ticking along and undervalued compared to their peers. And I think in a rising gold price environment, I want to own companies trading near their lows and with transformational growth ahead of them. Especially if the management seems to be relatively competent. There's no signs that they're particularly incompetent. So I'm happy to own them for that as well. So Alacer is a company that's got sort of makes up a good chunk of my sort of mid-tier gold mining portfolio, and I'm hoping that the next 3 to 6 months will see a bit of the market start to turn around as well.